It's the Fulhamish podcast, your independent voice of Fulham FC. My name is George Cooper and welcome to the show. I've been so looking forward to this podcast recording. After years of bad luck and horrible results, Fulham have finally done it. We have beaten Manchester United in the FA Cup. By God, it wasn't pretty. By God, it was nerve-wracking. My nerves were shot by the end of that penalty shootout, but we did it. Super Bernd Leno in goal with two huge saves to send Fulham into the FA Cup quarter-final. Joy, redemption, revenge, whatever you want to call it, we've done it. We are one win away from Wembley now. What a time to be alive on such an important game for this club this season. Imagine how we'd be feeling right now had it gone the other way. This is the worst way to win a football game, but by God, it is the best way to win a football game. Fulham victorious and yet another penalty shootout. What a string to our bow that is moving forward in this cup. I bet I speak for every single Fulham fan when I just say sheer elation. Thank God. Joy. Joining me today for this, what is going to be a very giddy podcast, I imagine, is making his debut, Luke Resch. How are you doing, sir?
Can't be better, can you, after that? Come on.
Yeah, exactly. I'm also with Elizabeth Barnard. How are you doing, my friend?
I literally have never felt better.
I have to say, Liz and I work together, so we've been fretting about this fixture for quite some time in the build-up, pretty much as soon as the fifth round draw was made. And I don't think I've ever seen Elizabeth more anxious about anything. You know, I have to admit, I was quietly confident going into this one. I didn't think it would be quite as tense and close as it was yesterday. But I mean, Liz, you were a bag of nerves going into this one, weren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say it ruined my weekend because I did have a lovely time with my friends, but every single time I thought about the game over the course of the weekend before 4:30 on Sunday, I felt like genuinely sick. And then while we were watching it, I was doing that thing, you know, when you're doing a difficult workout and you're like counting down the percentage of the way the difficult workout. I was doing that. So at like 10 minutes, like, okay, we're like 1/9 through. And then yeah, it felt like a marathon.
Yeah, Liz for the half-time 15 minutes put a link in our group chat to some calming meditation music to try and bring everyone down. And, you know, you said it didn't work.
It didn't work, no. Zen achieved very briefly, but briefly is the operative word.
Got you. We've also joined by Yasmin Mills. You were up in Manchester on Sunday. How are you feeling?
I am feeling so emotionally drained. I don't have any words to describe the feeling that I have. The only way that I can sort of compare it to something else, but in such a different way, is I was also at the quarterfinal, and I said that was the most out of body experience that I've ever felt. This was also close, but for another reason. I have never felt so uncomfortable as the two times that I've been to Old Trafford at a football game. I would say, apart from the end of the first half after Bassey's goal and obviously the elation after Leno saves the second penalty, I hated the rest of the game. The rest of it was so unpleasant. I didn't want to be there.
Yeah, I bet you're glad you were there at the end of that penalty shootout, though. I mean, a historic moment for this club, and we all remember what happened 2 seasons ago at Old Trafford, cruising to a comfortable victory. I think we were performing so much better in that particular game comparatively to how we played on Sunday, and to receive 3 red cards in the space of 90 seconds, all of a sudden, a 1-0 lead squandered, 1-1 down to 9 men, and just unable to comprehend what was happening in front of us. Just the sheer injustice of it, and that horrible sinking feeling of we have completely ballsed that up, to yesterday just grinding it out. I mean, we weren't good by any stretch, but thankfully for us, Man United were even worse. And just to take it to pens and to win like that, it's a game that we'll remember forever. And just enjoy this feeling, enjoy it. Yaz, I imagine the 3-word reviews were suitably joyous. Would you like to take us through some of your favourites, please?
Indeed, there were obviously lots Bernd Leno based, I would say. So I'll rattle through a few. So we've got Rick Cardis, Manchester's Burnding. Mike with Red with Revenge. Matt's Burnt the Script. Kieran's Red Devil Redemption. And the last one, History Books Burnt.
Yes, I like it. Liz, you were on the Totally Football Show with James Richardson yesterday, immediately after the final penalty was taken. Did you manage to catch your breath? Were you coherent for that brief spell? How did you feel after that final penalty?
I leapt around my house in a way that is like quite embarrassing for an adult woman to do. And then I got a link from the producer being like, can we squeeze it in now? I was like, sure, why not? And I locked on and I could hear my breathing down my mic. And I was so out of breath. It was so intense. And I think I did manage to string some sentences together. But honestly, I was so giddy. Yeah, totally out of body experience.
And you're a massive fan of that particular show as well. So it must have been even more of a pinch me moment. Imagine that. Imagine like having your I just trying to bring yourself back down to talk coherently on a very very well listened to football podcast.
I was asked what do Fulham earn Bernd Leno, and I was like, we owe him everything.
Yeah, well said. I mean, Tom Kearney tweeted after that game simply the word revenge. Luke, what do you think that game in particular and that win meant to the players?
I think you can just tell that there was that level of unfinished business about it from 2023. Like, the squad has changed and some of the key players that we had in that season have moved on, but there's still a real core of that team that we're about in both seasons. And I think even for someone like Silva, who has so repeatedly said that this is a real ambition for us this season, this competition, to then get that game against United, who 2 seasons ago, we were, like you say, well on for a spot in that semi-final deservedly, and in the space of under 2 minutes, threw it away. I just think this is such a huge moment in our season overall as well, like for both competitions. Like, we're in March and we still have ambitions in 2 competitions. We're normally Beach FC by March, but here we are. We've got, it's unreal.
Yeah. Do you think it's safe to say that game last night was the biggest of our season so far? And in many ways, a potential make or break. You think if we'd have lost that game, we'd be out of the cup. Obviously, a huge game against Brighton coming up in our race for European football. But I think European football, whilst we're all hopeful, if we're being realistic, seems like a bit of an outside bet. We've still got that hope that we're clinging on to, but it's not as concrete, it's not as there as the FA Cup in the quarterfinals. And had we lost on Sunday, it would have been, I feel like it would be a very different vibe on this podcast, put it that way. But do you think it was the biggest game of the season so far?
Yeah, I think it's definitely up there. I think what was most important about this game as well is I think no one has an easy FA Cup run, and away to United at Old Trafford is our hard game. I mean, not to say that quarters and semis and the other games aren't important as well or going to be difficult, but Man United, they're a big game team. They're the annoying ones. They're the holders of the cup. Like they're the team that might not play so well in the league in recent seasons, but still managed to mess about and managed to get to finals and win the cup last season. So you could see them beating us. And there were so many occasions yesterday where I was like, oh, this is it. This is where they beat us. This is where they score their second goal. Oh, of course it's going to go to extra time. This is where they win. Why are we dragging this out for longer? And we just dug in and held on right up until the death. And that's what is so important, is we've managed to beat Man United at Old Trafford. And it feels like this is the first step to going further. I think we can get to Wembley. I'm going to say it now because I'm so emotional at this point and I have no logic. So I see us at Wembley in the semis.
Yeah, let's have it. You're so true though. United they never seem to play well. Like, when was the last time you remember United playing well and winning. I think maybe with the exception of when they beat Liverpool in the FA Cup last year, that was a game where they were like, okay, right, they turned up that day. But they're terrible, and then they'll pop up as they did yesterday with a Bruno Fernandes goal or a moment of magic from one of their overpaid prima donna players, and you just think, oh, how is this true? How is this Groundhog Day nightmare continuing? But yeah, thankfully we managed to break the curse yesterday. And we set up for this game with real intent. I mean, Elizabeth, just looking at the starting lineup, there is a bit of relief to see Leno start for this one. Because obviously we've had Stephen Bender in the cup up until this point. And I was like, all logic dictated that, like, surely he's going with Leno for this one. And thankfully that happened. But was there a part of you that thought, oh, maybe, Mark is a man of principles. Could he give it to Bender?
No. There was a twofold reason why I was 100% sure that Bernd Leno was going to play. And honestly, if I'd got the team news at 3:30 and Bender had been playing, I would have not watched the game. But reason number one is that he rotated heavily in the league. Obviously, he didn't rotate the goalkeeper in the league for the Wolves game on Tuesday night, another fabulous night. And so it was really clear that the cup was the priority. So I thought he can't play the backup goalkeeper. And secondly, last time we went to Old Trafford 2 years ago in the cup, Bender had played up until that point, and then Leno played at Old Trafford. So I knew he was going to play Leno.
Yeah, I'm relieved that he did, because I think that penalty shootout would have gone very differently. Luke, we saw Muniz come in, start for this one, as well as Andreas Pereira. Now, I mean, I was really, maybe somewhat naively, but I was feeling confident before this game. I felt like we were due a big performance and a big statement win against United at Old Trafford in this competition. And it didn't pan out like that at all. I think that by and large, for the first half in particular, we were very, very poor. Manchester United, luckily, were even worse. But I was just wondering, did you share that frustration? And what is it about the way that we came out that you think just wasn't clicking for us in this game initially?
Yeah, I think it was definitely some of the nerves of the occasion got to us. I think, like, you look back at the season and it feels like we've been inconsistent throughout it. But actually, I just think we kind of consistently just play the level of the team we play. So if we play in Liverpool, we play like we're top of the league. If we play United, we play like we're bottom half. If we play Preston, we play like we're, a league below where we should be. And I think, again, like we said, that break in the curse is so massive for us, that we'd been in this kind of situation against United in the quarterfinals 2 seasons ago, and to be here again. And just that, I guess, the hangover of some of that for people like Silva, that was probably his biggest moment for us before we went to the Carabao Cup semi-final last season. So I think it showed the nerves on the players. I actually texted one of my mates who is a United fan and said, you can tell that we're really well coached, but the players are playing so nervous and we're not doing justice to that team structure right now. Like, how many of the passes in that first half went off for throw-ins and just stuff like that actually we're so good at doing the basics really well and building from that. And we just didn't do that so much yesterday in that first half.
Playing Fulham is kind of like the footballing equivalent of entering a funfair hall of mirrors, just sort of seeing yourself reflected in distorted angles. But yeah, it wasn't clicking for us by any stretch. Yasmin, I feel like going forward, we were just so disjointed. And the thing that I was getting so frustrated about was just the sloppy, careless manner in which we were being dispossessed, or like losing possession, handing the ball back to United. I thought Adama really didn't look at the races in this sort of game that you're like, we really need you, firing on all cylinders, man. And Iwobi, again, I thought looked slightly fatigued. I mean, if it wasn't for our centre mid, I think it would have been a very sort of nervy outing. Berger and Lukic once again showing that their class and how important they are to this team. Who were the standout performers for you, would you say, overall of this game, Yasmin?
Berger, absolutely, number one. Obviously, Leno was always going to get man of the match, but Berger was amazing yesterday. Really, really good. Calm, composed. managed to break, especially more in the second half, managed to break up because when Garnacho came on, it really seemed like Man United were piling the pressure on a little bit more, and Berger was so key for just deadening it a little bit and bringing it back down to calm. But I completely agree with you, Luke. It was a nervous first half. I thought Lukic was obviously one of our better players on the pitch, but his free kick, which he took early on in the second half, was an example. It just went straight into the Man United defence. It was an example of where nerves were kicking in, which I also thought, why is Pereira not taking that? Because Pereira, I thought, was very good when he was on. His work rate, as always, was really high, and I was impressed by Pereira. Adama was off. Even Robinson didn't look amazing yesterday. He didn't have his best game. There was a Bruno chance in the first half where Ugarte managed to shove Robinson off, and that's what really started that chance to come. And it was frustrating, and I like you, George, felt I had waves during the week of confidence going into this game. All the way through last week, confidence was down, but I would say 2 hours going into before kickoff, I was saying 4-0, 100%. We're riding through this. My dad put a bet on for 4-0. So we had really high spirits. And I said to my dad after about 10 minutes, I looked up and went, this is not what I expected. This is not at all what I expected. There was a little boy who stood behind me. He went, it feels like we're playing with 10 men. Adama isn't working. I was like, yeah, it's literally like that machine, which was so on for Forest, has just been turned off for United.
It's running out of batteries, needs recharging. I mean, it's true, because the thing is that United were exactly how I expected them to be. You know, you could hear the atmosphere I was watching it on the coverage on BBC, and it was all Fulham songs. It sounded like a morgue at Old Trafford. And you think, right, Man U are doing their part of the bargain. Like, why haven't Fulham turned up? This is so frustrating. They are there for the taking. They are so bad. And yeah, it was, I think you're right, Luke, just a combination of nerves and a bit of fatigue, but it wasn't pleasant viewing for anyone, I don't think. Not for Fulham fans, not for United fans, not for the mutual. But then on the stroke of half-time, Elizabeth, Calvin Bassey popped up with a header from a corner. United notoriously weak from corners. I think they've conceded the most from corners in the Premier League this season, and we knew it was a weakness, and this was a beautifully worked routine. Flick on from Muniz, and then Bassey nodding it in. I mean, just what a time to score.
Yeah, they say it's the best time to score in a game, don't they? Just before half time, because it unsettles the opposition so heavily going into the half. And I mean, it is terrible defending. There's no way we can, argue that it isn't. But to score at the end that the Fulham fans were, I believe, and for him to rush over, like Calvin Bassey at Old Trafford, we've seen this film before. And he obviously loved the moment. It was such a lovely flick, lovely goal. And Dan Cook put in the group chat when that happened, he was like, this reminds me of the Mitrovic goal 2 years ago. And I told him, obviously, shut up. We can't tempt any fate. But I'm so glad that Bassey got his moment, because he was absolutely titanic at the back for us yesterday. He was amazing. Yeah. And it's like, defenders obviously don't get the headlines because they're not making game-changing moments a lot of the time, but for him to get the goal as well was so special.
Yeah, you can hear the celebrations as well, the giddy squeals and what it means, like what he means to this squad just as a character and also as a player. He was so good. I think for me, up there with Berger for man of the match. Just on that note, like, what an abomination. Shearer gave the man of the match to Bruno Fernandes, who I know obviously got the goal and kind of was the only player who really stood up for United, but he was nowhere near as titanic as Bassey was, or I think Berger, and it just stunk of the kind of, big team bias that you get on major coverage. But anyway, that's just my opinion. We'll come on to Bruno Fernandes' goal now, unfortunately, because we do have to talk about it. It was just one of those where I watched it unfold in front of me and I had no reaction. steely faced. Just, it felt so familiar. It felt so inevitable. It felt so Manchester United. Done nothing really to earn it or warrant it. It was just a moment of magic, Luke, out of nowhere. And I don't really think there's an awful lot we can do about it. It's just such a good finish from what is, a fabulous footballer.
That's it. It's just an unreal finish, isn't it? Like, you can say maybe Castagna shouldn't be getting beat there, or maybe like Smith Rowe should track Bruno Fernandes. But I mean, Zirkzee's goal, first game of the season against Old Trafford, it felt like I watched that in slow motion when we were there. It's just, sometimes they just get these kind of bits of space. I swear every goal they score from us is, on the edge of the box or outside it. Like, when was the last time they actually had one like on the penalty spot or whatever? It always seems to be edge of the box, and it just gets drilled through a couple bodies and past Leno. But yeah, good finish, great finish.
It's so true. All of their goals are cut from that cloth, I guess. It's either moments of magic from outside the box or fluky deflections, or always against the run of play, always just annoying and frustrating, and they feel inevitable. But it was set up a very kind of nervy final kind of half hour. Liz, you can't, for the benefit of listeners, just pulled an expression of just exacerbation. It was a lot. It was a lot. Emil Smith Rowe came on for Traore, Yasmin, about 53 minutes. We've mentioned Traore wasn't his finest performance. Smith Rowe had a couple of chances there. I feel like if he could find a bit of power behind either of those shots, it could have made for a lot more comfortable afternoon. But he did make a difference when he came on and got himself into some good positions. Just lacked a bit of conviction with the final product.
Yeah. The first chance, especially, if that's the one which a little bit more power, and Onana's not saving that. We all thought it was in the away end because it was up the other end, and you're thinking, oh, this is perfect. This is our second goal, and yeah, Onana just tips it off to the side. It's annoying. I still find with ESR that I think that is symptomatic of him lacking confidence. If he just strikes that a little bit harder, he's got the time. He can finish that. There was also a few times yesterday as well where I found it frustrating that he has the skill. He completely has the skill, and he'll beat his man and then he'll stop. And that's what I find annoying when I'm watching Smith Rowe play. He obviously wasn't playing in the most natural of positions. He'd prefer to be more central, but I don't know. I don't think he was amazing. He got his couple of chances, but I don't think he was actually that amazing when he came on, in my opinion. I think he was a bit stunted, which probably is those two chances, not managing to get them away is an example of maybe where it was a bit stunted. But obviously Adama had to come off with his ankle injury, so that's a bit of a shame. Even though he wasn't amazing yesterday, you don't want him to go off injured, so hopefully that's not too bad.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think Emil Smith Rowe was amazing. He didn't grab the game by the scruff of the neck, and he just did have those chances that I felt like could have really put it to bed for us, but sadly it wasn't to be.
Yeah, it really could have changed the game.
Yeah. Elizabeth, there was a flurry of Manchester United chances late into the match. It was a very nervy penalty shout from Obi, who got in a tangle with Bassey, who I think actually in that position does what he needed to do without making it. Was very tight and very nervy, but he just made his presence known. I think it was the right shout. I don't think it was a penalty, but my God, my heart was in my mouth at that moment. Do you think we got away with one there, or do you think never a pen?
Never a pen for me.
Yeah.
But if I'm honest, at the time, I felt like I was going to pass out.
I was literally in the away end going, no, don't do it.
With hindsight and watching it back, yeah, not a pen. The chance that actually really made me, feel like just the worst was the Garnacho coming through.
Oh, and God, yeah.
Guys. And Leno stood up and was counted and saved it. I mean, it wasn't actually the best shot in the end, but at the time I was thinking, we've seen Garnacho late winners before. at the Cottage a couple of years ago, and he's just such an easy player to dislike as well. And yeah, thanks to Bernd Leno, because otherwise this would be a very different tone.
I also just think, like, shout out Timmy Chestnuts there. Like, he's the one player that didn't get a rest really in Molineux that could really have needed one. And I think if he like makes the difference to get back there, to put Garnacho under some pressure, that if he's not there, Garnacho can basically take another touch and I think slot it past Leno. And I know, like, again, don't think it was Castagne's best performance. I don't think we've seen like the best of him in the last month, but I think, you know, he's knackered and we've got no one else to rotate in there. And Garnacho comes in, you know, in 50 minutes or whenever and runs him ragged, but he's back there in like the 90th minute. I think he did a good job there to put Garnacho off enough that Leno's then able to make that save.
Yeah, he certainly put in a shift. But you're right, Liz. It's one of those. I think it was one of the last kicks of normal time, wasn't it? It was right at the final, you know, in injury time. I just was there like shit, and then thankfully Leno stood firm. There was another moment where Obi turns and got a shot, and I think this potentially goes down as the save of the season from Fulham, from Leno. Gets his hand to it, and you watch it in slow motion. That ball is going in, and his hand just sort of like shoots up out of nowhere and tips the ball over. But just an incredible reaction save that was just instinctive. I doubt Leno would have like known much about it, but so close to conceding there. And then, you know, that would have been that. It was, having been a real slog of a contest, it kind of did spring to life in the final stages. And we saw some very interesting kind of substitutions and some big saves from both goalies. Sess on at right wing. Never thought I'd see the day. Liz, talk me through how you felt about this one, because as I like when we saw him coming on, you're like, oh, okay, well, how's he going to shape this? And you're like, is that Sess on the right? And he had an immediate impact with cutting inside and forcing a really big save out of Andre Onana. And I mean, if you nearly passed out on the Garnacho through, I think that would have been enough to finish you off if that one had gone in, Liz.
I just feel like everything I'm saying on this podcast, it sounds like I was having the worst experience of my life for 120 minutes, and like on some level it felt like that. But when he came on, I genuinely like forgot my lefts and rights for a bit, and I was just like, off he goes. And then when you flagged it, Sess on the right, and I was like, hang on. And I thought he was amazing. I thought he was so electric, like no bias. And there were moments where there was one moment where he should have got a shot off and slightly miscontrolled it. And I just thought, but like to get into that position in the first place, to have Sess as a right wing option for us, I never thought I'd be saying it, but it's very exciting.
Yeah, I thought it worked as well. It was intriguing and just another curveball, I guess, from Marcus Silva. I doubt many people had that on their bingo card. Sess cutting inside from the right, but I think it worked, and it was just another attacking outlet that we had, and it kind of, I feel like, took the Manchester United backline by surprise, because nobody was really expecting that one. I doubt Ruben Amorim had written many prep notes for that particular circumstance, but yeah, alas, it went to penalties. Let's come on to the shootout now. I mentioned in the intro that it's the worst way to lose a game, but potentially the best way to win it. Luke, were you hopeful going in? Did you have confidence, or were you thinking this just reeks of a Man U victory that nobody wants, bar Man U fans?
It was shaping up to be, you know, vintage Fulham, so close and yet so far. You're watching the coin toss. It's Stretford end. United get to shoot first. Bruno Fernandes is stepping up. You think, oh gosh, so we're 1-0 down, and then what's going to happen? But yeah, as I was saying earlier, I think starting Muniz meant that Raul came on later in the game. Like, there's no way Raul would have played 2 hours. And, you know, I think probably an accidental tactical masterclass from Silva there, bringing Raul on later in the game so that he could take that pen. Because I was like, this guy's scoring. And having Leno in, as opposed to human scarecrow Stephen Bender, made me think, oh, we might, if we can save one, we've got people that can actually bag a penalty. Like, we've become shootout FC over the last couple of seasons, so we could do this.
Yeah.
And Willian, I mean, that's worth his wages alone just for that moment, right? So, yeah. I was hopeful, but never convinced that we defo had it.
Yeah, it's true. And I think that this will really go in our favour for the rest of this FA Cup, is that we do back ourselves in the penalty spot, Yaz. I mean, you look at our takers, you got Raul, who just does not miss. Berger, brilliant penalty. And you got Willian stepping up. Is there a more calm, languid baller that you would want playing for your team in that position? Again, he just exudes confidence. He just does not get nervous. And then Jedi as well. He was the only one of the four that I was like slightly nervous about, but he slotted away incredibly calmly. And we scored about 50 penalties on the bounce against Preston in the Carabao Cup. And we just seem to back ourselves. We're like, I think that it's something that we have in our lockers, and we could very well see again in this tournament.
Yeah, I know. I don't know what it is with Fulham and penalty shootouts in the cups, because you've got Spurs, Everton, Man United now, and Preston's unfortunate. That's just so unlucky. Like, that's a freak of nature penalty, that one is. But yeah, I agree. Robinson was possibly the only one that I was slightly nervous about. But I'm so happy with. I'd rather not have a penalty shootout. Like, I don't care how many good penalty takers we got. I don't want one. But I am very happy with how this one particularly went, because I think man for man, we were the better side. I think the way we dug in yesterday showed that we probably did deserve the win. So I'm so happy that the way we won this game was by 2 Leno saves rather than like 2 Man United misses. That feels like we won a penalty shootout. So I'm happy. I felt satisfied walking out of that ground, because to have fought all the way to the end of extra time and then had to go to penalties felt so unfair and so Man United, and I felt like it was really, really setting them up for a win. So I was so happy. I was taken by surprise by how happy I felt that when we won. I think the elation in the crowd was just pure surprise. No one expected it. The amount of times I could hear people around me going, "Oh, this is it. Oh, this is it." And we just managed to get on to the end. I couldn't believe my eyes. I honestly in so much shock still that I'm talking in a happy manner about this game, and I'm not depressed. And I'm not going to lie, I had to watch quite a lot of the highlights specifically back, because that OB chance and the Garnacho chance I didn't actually see because I had my hands over my eyes. So I had to go back and watch again. Yeah, just honestly over the moon that we got through.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, Fulham fans are all trauma bonded by this fixture, aren't we? Like, that's what it comes down to. But yeah, luckily it was our keeper, Bernd Leno, Liz, with the 2 big saves. I mean, just talk me through your setup. Like, I feel like I watched the first half at my local, and then I was like, this is too much. I can't do this. So during half time I walked home because I was like, I can't be in public for this because I'm losing my mind. My girlfriend's telling me to stop shouting at the TV screen because you're the only person in this pub who seems vaguely bothered about the result of this game. And then I was just, it was just pure relief, joy, elation when Leno made that first stop, and then again for the second. But there's been some criticism, perhaps unfairly, over the seasons, that it's a bit of a weakness of Leno's goalkeeping, prowess, is that he doesn't seem to be like a penalty save expert, like you may say about, I don't know, Jordan Pickford or whatever. But I mean, by God, he proved us wrong yesterday, or he proved anyone who thought that wrong yesterday.
Yeah, I'm so glad for him that he's got this moment where, like, he is undoubtedly the player of the match. He's the player that's in the headlines today, not only in Fulham circles, but around the football world. Like, it is just, I'm so pleased for him, and seeing his celebrations with the players are incredibly emotional. And obviously, as soon as this podcast is done, the first thing I'm going to do is watch them for the 1,000,000th time. Yeah, I didn't watch either of the saves. I was hid behind my sofa with my face in my hands. I have watched them back, but as soon as I I initially turned the TV off for the penalty shootout, went sat in the other room, and then came back and turned it on because I was like, actually, it's better to know. Then I watched the first 3 from either side and thought, I just can't handle this anymore. So then I sat and crouched behind my sofa and I put my hands to the Man United ones. And then Lindelof didn't score. So I was like, okay, this is a good omen. I'm not going to watch it. But I did watch, I think it was Robinson who scored. And then back in the hands of Zirkzee. And then obviously we didn't take another. I heard the sound on the TV. I heard the comms. I jumped up. I hurt my ankle quite badly jumping. I raced around the house. I screamed as well, which is quite embarrassing, especially if you live in a block of flats like I do. And yeah, so best day of my life.
Yeah, I mean, what a moment. I loved Leno afterwards when he was speaking to the BBC coverage. He was like, yes, the goalie coach gave me some informations, but in the end, I just think like my vibe is better, and I went with that. And thankfully, we are now in the quarterfinals. He just was like, I'm just gonna go with my gut on this one. He even said like, I guessed wrong for the first 3, and then I just thought I'm just gonna go with my gut feeling with this one. And boy, are we glad that he did. What a legend! What an absolute legend. But yeah, I mean, we got Palace in the next round. Obviously, everyone was watching with bated breath for the draw. I felt as nervous for the draw as I did in those penalty shootouts because it's just like, it would be incredibly Fulhamish for us to, put in this heroic victory at Old Trafford and then get, City away for the quarterfinals. And then, I think I would have jumped into the Thames had that been the case. But Palace at home, we were the first ball out of the hat as well, which was home draw, good start. Palace, obviously, we don't have the best record at home to them over the years. I think we said on the previous podcast. I think it was like the 80s the last time we beat them at Craven Cottage. That was in the league. But yeah, how are you feeling? I'm kind of on the vibe of take that.
I think when you look at like who else it could have been, I think we got to take that. And I know that we've got a bit of like a Palace curse against us recently, but I think, we're breaking these curses. The last couple of seasons have shown that. And I completely back Silva against anyone except maybe City away. And actually Bournemouth getting them at home. Like if we can beat Palace, you just never know. I think it's such a good draw for us. Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very, very good chance. We're 1 win away from Wembley, Yas. How does that feel?
Oh no, I don't want to hear you say that. Like honestly, I'm so you saying that makes it true. I actually I obviously wasn't watching the draw, and I wasn't even thinking about it really because I was still watching Bassey and Iwobi dancing to Bassey's chants at this point. But when I came out and saw that it was Palace, like to be fair, I think the FA Cup's opening up so well for us at the moment to do the job. Palace is obviously going to be a struggle, and they obviously mighty beat us recently, and deservedly so. So I find that this is going to be quite a difficult game coming up. But the FA Cup's different. It's different to the league. Anything can happen. So I'm hoping we can. I do back Silva. I do think we can get to Wembley just based on vibes. If that's what Bernd Leno's going for, then the rest of the team can go for that as well. I really want to see it. It's so possible for us at the moment. City's like the only one that I'm properly fearing. Everyone else, even City, we've played against well this season. I reckon we can do it. Yeah. Just because it's the day after, so I reckon we can do it.
Let's do it. Potential history to be made here this season. So, yeah, bring it on. That's it for part 1. We'll be back shortly with some of your questions. Welcome back. It's the Fulhamish podcast. George Cooper here, and I'm joined by Elizabeth, Yaz, and Luke. We are revelling in the glory of Sunday's FA Cup victory away at Old Trafford against Manchester United. And if you would like to see this team live in the flesh, we are doing a live show at the Half Moon Putney. Another live show. We love doing this. It's probably one of our favourite things that we do as a podcast as a whole. It's on Sunday, March the 16th. Is after the Tottenham Hotspur game, and we will be joined by the one and only Paul Cooper, Not my dad, although he will be in attendance. No, we're talking about goalkeeper Martin Mucklow from BBC's hit documentary This Country. He's a massive Fulham fan and an absolute legend. He'll be joining us on stage with all your regulars. We're going to be doing a live rendition of This Will Catch On. I know it's been on sabbatical of late, so we've got plenty of belters lined up. So if you want to come along to that, there's still a few tickets left. There's a link in the description to this podcast. It'd be great to see you. Yeah, they're always good fun, the Half Moon shows. Aren't they, Liz?
Yeah, absolutely my favourite thing we do. I keep trying to get the team to go to karaoke and everyone's resisting. But live This Will Catch On, I think, will be just as good.
Yeah, it basically is live karaoke as well, because we get the lyrics up on the screen, and there've been some famous moments over the years at our Half Moon shows. Who can forget Doug from the last one? It went out on our. He did a cover of Sex on Fire to Adama Traore, wasn't it? It was for Adama Traore. Yeah, anyway, if you want to be involved, then do grab your tickets. I hasten to add, they're going quite quickly, so don't wait around for that one to avoid disappointment. Right, on to your questions. Thank you all so much for getting in touch. We've got some absolute belters here. We'll start off with this one. I'll chuck it to you, Elizabeth. So Bram asks, how does life get better than this? I don't think it does really, does it? The sun is out, spring is sprung, Fulham are in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup.
Yeah.
Beat Man U. Let's just live in this moment for as long as we can.
Yeah, the game 2 years ago, which we lost in the most dramatic way possible, was one of the worst, or the worst mood I've ever been in after a football match. And today I am walking on sunshine. I've got my Fulham top on. I'm going to go to the gym. I live in South England, but obviously like there are loads of Manchester United fans who live really near me who wear their Manchester United tops to the gym, and I'm just going to look straight at them and go, we beat you.
Yeah. Yeah, as you said, it was something that you enjoyed coming back. I mean, long journey back from Manchester on a Sunday evening, especially with the extra time and penalties, but you said that you had a smug glow when you encountered other Manchester United fans in service stations on the way back from Manchester.
Oh my God, it was absolutely amazing. All my maternal instincts had gone because sadly seeing all the kids in their Man United shirts and their half and half scarves wasn't quite the day out they'd planned. But, you know, I felt so cruel but so happy. No, I was sat in Kiel service station with my Fulham shirt very well on show. And walking out of the ground as well. And yeah, there was a dad and his son. He was sat opposite me, both of which were staring at me the whole time. To a point, I felt slightly uncomfortable and thought, I hope they don't come over and talk to me about this. But they both looked so gloomy. Such a shame.
I love that when you like all your maternal instincts out the window, seeing the sad kids in their Man U shirts, just like conjured images of you as they stand by the confectionery yard, just sort of like whispering in their ear, like, tough luck, you little shit. See you next year. Sort of like pulling their beanie over their face as you walk away. But yeah, I expected better of you, Yasmin. I really did. So we've got another question here from our one and only Avas. Luke, he said, what was your average heart rate over the course of the game in the penalties? So Sammy texted us halfway through the game, and he's got one of those Fitbit kind of Google watches, and his heart rate was at 128. That was towards the dying stages of the game. Do you feel like yours was similar?
Oh yeah, at least, man. At least I remember the only other time I've done that was like when Dennis Adoy got sent off in the playoff final, and it was honestly like 150, 160. So I feel like it must have been similar to that. I think my wife had 99 dialed, just ready to hit that like last one if I killed over.
Yeah, good on you. Good on you. We got some questions here about Ryan Sessegnon, obviously, who had his cameo, and we sort of briefly touched upon his little venture at right wing during the analysis. But I mean, do we feel like he's got a future at right wing? Because he was incredibly effective. And do you think this was a sort of, you know, a cup kind of throw of the dice, or do you expect to see more of it, Yaz?
Yeah, I mean, we'll never really know, because obviously this was only really impactful in terms of it was extra time. But I thought what was made him very useful as well was Willian being on at the same time. Like, it was their little link-up play, Willian being able to, again, show composure and show experience. And he's the one who sets up Sess on multiple occasions in extra time. I mean, it worked. It worked then. I don't know if it will work in the future. I don't know if we'll be in the same situation as we were yesterday, because we had Adama off. There was only really one place where Sess could go, and I don't think Robinson was going to come off. So he was only ever going to go there. Obviously, we saw him at Wolves, and he did very well, obviously, to come on for one of his first starts and score straight away, literally straight away. I mean, I'd like to see it. I love Sess. Nostalgia coming through mainly. That's my main reason. But I do think he did very well yesterday. He has that attacking threat, which we haven't actually seen from Robinson that much. He, apart from obviously like assists, but more going forward towards the goal element of it as well. Sess has that. So I'd like to see it. I would like to see it.
Yeah, Sess is a winger. At me, I don't care. Like, Sess is a winger. He picks up them spaces. He's better up there. When he makes mistakes, we're not as punished for them, and it grows his confidence. Like, he's got to be up there, I think, for me.
Yeah, and we've seen how Robinson operates on that left-hand side with Iwobi, who obviously cuts inside from the left and unlocks the potential of Robinson down that flank. And I don't know, perhaps we could see this, and it could bring Adama Traore. Could we see the Traore-Sess link up, with the reciprocal on the other side, which would be electric? Could you imagine a more dynamic duo on that right? I mean, I don't know. Marco, if you're listening, it would be a lot of fun, that's for sure. Got another question here about Bernd Leno. Andrew Fox asks, Luke, has Leno surpassed Schwarzer as our second best keeper ever? Is he getting close to Van der Sar? Now, I feel like the dialogue around Leno is he's our best keeper since Schwarzer. I mean, are we now having that conversation that he could perhaps be on a par, or dare I say it, better than the Australian? I mean, Van der Sar was obviously different level just because of everything that he went on to do, how good he was for Fulham. He was, I think, bona fide Fulham legend, and you'd be really hard pushed to ever say that any goalkeeper can top, arguably the greatest keeper the Premier League has ever seen. But Schwarzer is such an amazing servant for the club, and I feel like we had the best years of his career, and he on his day was absolutely unbeatable. But Leno's really giving him a run for his money. What do you reckon on this one, Luke?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that they're so close, aren't they? I think you look at Schwarzer, and the thing that defined that era was how well drilled we were defensively, like Hangeland and Hughes in front of him. I think we are starting to get to a place now with Bassey and Anderson, or even Bassey and Diop recently have been so solid. But I think Silva plays way more attacking football than Hodgson did. And so actually we get hit way more than we used to. And so I think Leno is probably forced to make more saves than Schwarzer did. And every time we were getting relegated, when we were in that kind of period of going up, coming down, going up, coming down, was because we were so weak at the back. And I just think Leno has been such a massive part to play in that. Like, you look at even the kind of renaissance of Tim Ream at the end of his career. I think, again, that's so much in part to knowing he has such a solid keeper behind him. For me, I think if we can go to a semi-final or a final of the FA Cup this season, like that's Leno for me over Schwarzer. Like, quarter-final, semi-final, final loading, who knows?
Who knows? Just on the subject of the penalty shootout, we'll continue, because obviously, it was Leno's day and everything. But Harry Saunders asked Liz, who do you reckon would have taken the fifth penalty and why? I thought this was a real head scratcher because, I don't know. The fifth penalty taker is a really important, really important role within the sort of the penalty taking squad. And who do you reckon would have taken it?
So who had taken one? Raul, Willian, Berger, and Robinson.
Who was the lucky fifth who got away scot-free?
Well, obviously my heart wants to say Brian Sessegnon, and he took the fifth one in the Carabao Cup shootout. Just saying. So when we in the Preston game, he took the fifth penalty. and the subsequent 16th penalty as well, or whatever it was. I think maybe Bassey. Is that a sensible answer? I just feel like he's got a good strike on him that we've seen. He's got nerves of steel, and he would have been a great option. But if I'm honest, I'm glad it didn't get to that point.
Yeah. We got any other any advance on Bassey? I think it would have made sense. Again, this is purely speculative. Sess also would have been pretty vibey. I mean, Castagna obviously missed the penalty, but I mean, he can hardly be blamed for that. It was the second one of the evening. I don't think who else. We've got Harrison Reed, perhaps, again.
Still got Smith Rowe on the pitch as well.
Smith Rowe. But yeah, I think Sess makes a lot of sense. You know, he's got a good finish on him. So yeah, should we hypothetically say it would have been Sess, and he would have?
Oh yeah.
He would have had Zirkzee scored. Sess would have scored the winner, and that would have been the written himself into the pages of history. I mean, Yaz, we've had so many incredible historic wins this season already. Obviously, Chelsea away, the Brentford win at home. It feels like a kind of, we've been. If the season were to end now, we'd be talking about it for the rest of our days. But Josie B asks, where does last night rank in all-time Fulham wins from your perspective? I mean, obviously it was amazing, and we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. It was the fifth round, but it felt pretty big.
Yeah, it did feel big, but I would have to caveat it slightly by the fact that I didn't really enjoy the majority of the game. So there are other wins that we have got, which I have enjoyed the overall experience of more. Like even our playoff semi-final, Dennis Adoy, Ryan Sess, that actually for me ranks higher. Because, yeah, like I said at the start of the pod, for most of the game at Old Trafford, I was watching the game through my fingers. I felt uncomfortable. It felt unpleasant. It wasn't an easy win. I think in terms of significance, it's big, especially with whatever comes in the future in this FA Cup run. It is very significant as a game. But I would rank the playoff final higher because I felt more confident, more comfortable in that game against Villa. I felt more comfortable against Derby as well, as games that I've been to. So I would actually rank those higher than Man United last night. In terms of this season, though, so I missed Chelsea away. Gut-wrenchingly missed that. But I was there for Brentford, and that was great as well. But I think just because the FA Cup has that slight more magic to it, I think I rank it as my favourite game for this season in terms of how elated I was afterwards. I was on cloud 9 last night.
Yeah, I was at Chelsea away, but I wasn't at United yesterday. But I don't know, it's pretty tight. I feel like had this been the quarterfinal, then it would be no question. But and obviously I've got a slight bias because I was at Chelsea away, and that was just euphoric in a completely different realm. I don't know. It's like comparing apples and oranges, right? The league and the cup. So maybe it's a pointless discussion, but they're both brilliant. Should we just leave it at that? But
indeed.
Liz, Harry O'Connell asks, as the BBC Sport commentator alluded to during the match, should Marco Silva get a statue? Now, I feel like it may be a tad premature after last night alone. However, if we do the thing that Fulham have never managed as a club and win the FA Cup under Marco Silva, I think it'd be pretty hard to argue against one. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. It would be premature at this point to get a statue for Silva, but if we win, get a carving now. We talk about statues for some of our best players in this team. Obviously, Tom Kenny is the one that springs to mind, like a real servant of the club, a man that has. Well, Jack Collins told me off for calling him a one club player because he technically played for Blackburn and Hull, but a one club player.
Yeah.
But if Marco Silva is the man that is able to secure this team a major trophy for the first time ever, I don't see what reason we could have not to build one. Yeah, I'm starting to feel a bit nervous about Palace now, which like
Yeah.
looking forward, I don't want to count any chickens. But the experience yesterday and supporting this team through that, just wow. And what Yaz said about like it not feeling comfortable, yeah, it was hellish, but none of the good wins have been comfortable. Even the playoff final, I genuinely, like, my heart rate was like Luke's, like 150, 160 kind of vibes. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I lost 1,000 lives that day. So
yeah, I mean, I know we were all saying earlier that Palace, will take that as a draw in the grand scheme of the clubs that were left in, but that's like no disrespect to Palace, to use the old football cliche, but Oliver Glasner's incredible manager. They got the likes of Mateta and Eze and very, very dangerous players. And Oliver Glasner's an incredibly accomplished manager who's done incredibly well with that team. So it's not going to be an easy game at all. And yeah, I'm not going to be going into that one thinking that we're going to Wembley. It's going to be tense, much like Sunday was. And it's going to be a struggle, but I feel like we can do it. I feel like this is our year. This is our year. So on that note, I think we'll wrap up. There'll be more analysis, no doubt, of the Manchester United game on the Thursday club. So do keep your eyes peeled for that one. Yaz, before we clock off, what are you going to name the pod?
I think I am going to go for History Books Burnt, because I think that brings all the redemption, the revenge, all of those themes into one, and obviously hails our hero Bernd Leno.
Yeah, big vibes from Bernd Leno. Excellent. Well, that's it. I think that's all we've got left. I need to go and have a little lie down, I think, after that giddy excitement. But Luke, Resch, thank you very much for making your debut. What an occasion to do so as well.
Come on. Thanks, mate.
No worries. Elizabeth Barnard, it's a pleasure as always.
thank you for having me, George.
It was a pleasure. And thank you, Yasmin Mills. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, George.
If you do want to come see us live, a little quick reminder before we wrap to get yourself a ticket. Link is in the description to the podcast. But until then, enjoy this moment. Enjoy the sunshine. Enjoy your week. We'll see you very soon. Come on, you Whites!